Hi there, my name is John Beaufoy and I'm going to show you an idea for using Git to manage changes to Jade code. To clarify what I'm talking about here, by Jade I mean the O database and software development tool built by Jade Software Corporation in New Zealand. And Git, well, it's one of the most popular version control tools available, and available at a cost that we all like. So be warned that without at least some basic understanding of both these tools, then some of what follows won't make much sense. Jade's a phenomenal tool in a lot of ways, but one area where it's never really been that strong is source control. There's deltas, patches and other options all have a number of weaknesses. I should also stress that this demo I'm going to show you is only one way of approaching this problem. It may not be the best way, but what it is at least is a simple approach and could be used as a starting point for building something better. Listening to Jade developers, it seems that most teams have a solution to source management, but most, if not all, are on the lookout for something better. And thinking through what some of the basic requirements would be, we want to be able to track changes. So it's being able to look back and see who changed what and when, and it's certainly useful for diagnosing problems or reverting back to an earlier point. There's concurrent development, basically where you might be working on several different changes over the course of your day or week, and you don't want these to interfere with each other or the work of other developers. And also deploying changes, so being able to confidently wrap up your changes and move them into another environment, but not take those changes that aren't ready. That means you have to deal with dependencies as to what other changes are needed to be in that environment already, and being able to merge with other changes to create a release. Practically all third-party source control tools assume that source files will reside as text in a folder structure. So the reason this is a hard problem to solve from a Jade perspective is that it stores code in binary database files in the same way it stores your business data. I mean, sure, you can use Jade's extract function to write code out to schema files on disk, and that works to a point, but the contents of these schema files contain environmental details and inconsistencies that mean that if the same extract occurred from another environment, while the code might be the same, the schema files and parts within might not be. So that's going to appear as a false hit when you're comparing changes. And then consider a DDB file for a moment. Open one of those up and imagine trying to merge two versions of that together. Before I show you a demo, I want to draw you a picture and show you how all this hangs together, so hopefully you can follow what's going on. At its core, the solution is quite simple. The starting point is a Jade development environment belonging to an individual developer. And what we do is we carry a file representation of the entire Jade environment on disk. Picture all your Jade schemas in a folder hierarchy with all the class info and everything else stored within. If we open up a class, it's going to be similar in detail to a class level schema extract without the environmental details. But I want to stress that I'm not too worried about the format at this point. Whenever you make a change to the code in the Jade IDE, this change is written to disk. And we also tell Git to record those changes too. And that in itself has cracked the tracking changes point. And one of the great things about Git is that you can have branches. And then when you switch between these branches, the contents of the files effectively swap out to match the new view. And what we do as a result of that change in context is ask Git to tell us what changes are compared to where the Jade system was at. And we can deploy those changes back into Jade so we remain in sync. And we need two-way update capability to make this all hang together. Because you're changing your Jade system based on the context you're in, you'd be affecting other developers. For that reason, what we need to do is ensure that each developer has their own sandpit to work in, their own environment. And what we're looking at is the distributed model of development. This is the reason why a tool like Git is such a good fit, as that's what it's designed for. But equally, Mercurial or another similar tool should work too. So if we can crack the problem of getting Jade code in and out of text files and talking to Git, then we have access to the many of the tools that other development environments get to use. Git is very powerful in terms of being able to push, pull and merge from other sources, so we can utilize all this functionality and to collaborate and have central repositories. And the way I look at it, if we can crack it for two environments sharing and merging code, then this can scale out to as many developers as you have in your team. and you can do what you like in terms of a branching model that best suits the needs of your company. Right, well, let's see this in action. On the left, you'll hopefully recognize the Jade IDE, and I've got 3 schemas in there, but the bottom one is used to manage the source control. And I've also got a demo schema there that we'll dive into that, and I'll show you some of the classes on that. We're going to use these, make some changes to them, basic shape classes. We'll make some changes to them and just see how it interacts with the Git system. On the right is File Explorer with the standard Jade folders, and we've got a source control one there that's been created. If we go in there, you'll see the classic Git trademark repo. And going to the schemas, we've got one for each of the schemas that we've got in the Jade environment. And these are all the card schema ones there. Each class is one XML file. We'll go into our demo schema. You'll see that we'll actually open up the shape rectangle one, which reflects the what we're looking at on the left hand side. So let's open that up. Let's get this going here. I'll get that out of the way, and so you can see there the XML content there. We've got class information and the method data down the bottom, but importantly no environmental information in there. On the right is our interface to Git. The top area is for management of branches, where we can create them and move between them too. We're also going to choose to make all our coding changes in branches other than master. So let's say we've been asked to build this shapes functionality out a bit further. I'll start with creating a branch called feature and switch our context to be on that branch. The first change we'll do is to amend this existing shape rectangle class by creating a new method. Watch how as we make changes, we see changes being made to the file. We can also see this class file has now also been registered with Git as a modification. I'll also add in a new class. We'll call this shape circle. And again, you'll see it appear in the version control window, but this time as an add. And I'll throw some method stubs in for now too. It's good practice when using Git to commit often, so let's do that now. By committing, we'll be able to revert back to the exact same state again later. And now we've done that, there's no longer any registered changes either. While trying to build this Jade to Git link, I'm trying to consider real life scenarios. So with that in mind, this is just when I thought I had peace and quiet to continue on with these changes. Let's say a customer rings up complaining that there's an issue with a live system and we need to get in and fix that straight away. It's not practical for us to make changes into this environment as it is now, as the code base is different to what's in the customer's live system. Git can help us here if we have a branch that reflects what's in our customer system, and for that it's this simple demo, that's master. So if we select the master branch, what the change table now shows us is the changes we have to make to get from where we are to where we need to be. And in this case, that's the reverse of the code changes we just made. So that would be removing the shape circle class completely and reverting the rectangle class too. When we hit checkout, Git reverts the file structure back to the way we had it before. And so under the hood, we can then convert the changed XML files back into schema files, and where necessary, doing JCF commands too, in this case to handle a delete. So you can ignore these command poplets that appear, they're just debug info, one for the schema load, one for the JCF. But notice that the method we created has now disappeared, both from the Jade IDE and from the file. We now have a view of the customer's code, and since branches are cheap, let's create a new one to address this problem. Our calculate parameter function hasn't been done correctly, my bad, so let's fix it up now. If we navigate back to master, we don't have this change in it yet. Hence we need to migrate the changes from our hotfix branch back into master, and for that we'll use what Git would call a merge. Now we've done that, confirming in the master branch we now have the hotfix. For another scenario, let's try something a bit more heavy duty. I'll create a maintenance branch and we'll head over to that. What I'm going to do is rename this parent class, which it's the sort of thing that can create quite a few problems in a Jade deployment situation. Now, Git's actually been smart enough here to recognise this is a rename, which is kind of handy, but it's not always correct because the way it does its file comp here is it's just something we've still got to look at. But anyway, this one works, so we'll go ahead and commit that. What I do want to do is continue on with our feature changes, so let's jump back over to that branch. You'll see that this doesn't have either the hotfix or the maintenance change, which might be okay for some situations, and you certainly could continue on with a feature branch in isolation. But what we could do is merge these changes across. Firstly the hotfix changes, and then we'll get the maintenance branch across too. It might have been more appropriate to do what Git calls a rebase here, or Git might have asked us to help with the merge if it was too complex. And I haven't built either of these features in yet, but in reality the process is the same as a merge, where we firstly update the file contents and then ask Git how this differs from what it knows we have in Jade. So then we can just build a deployment to bring Jade back into sync. So this is all well and good. We've been able to make some changes to a Jade system without too much in the way of smoke and mirrors. I'll now open a tool called Source Tree, which is a freeware tool for managing Git repos. This tool has no direct interaction with Jade, it's just looking at the directory structure of text files and making calls to Git. And anything it can do, we can do programmatically too, should we want to. The main panel shows the list of branches that we've worked on and the history of code changes for each. I initially committed the full environment extract of the repo, so you'll see here all the card schema classes amongst all the other ones in the schemas. If we move up through the branches, we can see the initial add and amend feature change. It shows us who made the change and when that was done. It also color codes the type of changes made to each file, so you can drill down as far as you need to. Next we can see the rename. As you can see, it's color coded, red being the original, how the code used to look, green being how it looks now. For the hotfix change, we can dig a little deeper, as while we can see here what the code changes were, if you're really on a witch hunt and you need to know where to lay blame, it can also tell us that too. That's enough playing around in our own sandpit, so let's have a go at pushing some code up to a central repository so we can share our changes with other developers. I've already pre-configured a repo for this system and pushed up the initial code base, so all we need to do now is submit our changes. Unfortunately my internet connection is shite, so this takes a bit longer than it should. You could use an on-premise solution for this, or tap into GitLab or whatever works for you, just so long as Git can talk to it. For this demo I'll use Visual Studio Team Services. I'll navigate through the hierarchy and hopefully you'll recognise the classes here that we amended earlier. Here's the shape rectangle class, and note that we're looking at it in the context of the master branch. The history of changes has also been uploaded, and there's a portal for viewing that information too. So if we select our hotfix change, we can see how Visual Studio displays this. I think it's kind of cool to see Jade code online like this. The final thing I wanted to show you was bringing the changes that another developer has made back into our Jade environment. To simulate that, let's navigate down to a file, make some changes to it, then commit. Jumping back into Source Tree, we can use that to pull our changes down to our PC. So this has now updated our local Git repo, and we can see that changes exist and can check again who they've been made by. Now, these changes aren't yet in Jade, But all we need to do to get them in there is follow the same process that we've been using to switch branches. And if I can find my Jade window, the method you can see is still as we left it. I have a sync button for now, which is telling me that changes have occurred to the files that we didn't make directly from the IDE. So let's tidy that up. And voila, the changes are now synced back into Jade. Well, that's all I've got to show you. If you're still with me, then hopefully you have some interest in this. And I suppose that's the reason why I put this demo together, because I want to know what interest there is for it. Would the company that you work for pay to use a package like this? Would you donate money or your time as a developer to help build it? To build something that's stable enough for commercial use would take some considerable effort, as there's a number of complications to overcome. None of these are insurmountable, particularly as we could open source it and tap into the many smart developers we have in the Jade community. The few I've spoken to are keen to build something and have their own fresh ideas on how to build it, and they're great ideas too. But I am left feeling a little nervous given the size of the Jade community as to whether or not it's all worth it. Whether there's enough Jade teams out there crying out for something like this. So drop me an email or leave a message where you found this link. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. Thanks for your time.